The United States has crossed a line it may not be able to retreat from. Washington has confirmed that US forces have captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. This is no rumor, and it is no longer just a Latin American crisis. What began as a regional pressure has now escalated into a global geopolitical confrontation, with China and Russia warning that the fallout will extend far beyond Caracas. China has accused the United States of a blatant use of force and a violation of international law. Russia is calling it armed aggression. Iran says it's illegal regime change. Suddenly, what looked like a unilateral American action is turning into a geopolitical stress test, one that could reshape how power is contested in a fractured world order. So the question now is simple but dangerous. Will China and Russia retaliate? And if so, how? Venezuela has been under US pressure for years. Sanctions, diplomatic isolation, support for opposition figures, this is not new. What is new is that a sitting president was physically captured by US forces. That matters because it moves the conflict from economic warfare into something far more serious. Sanctions can be debated, recognition can be reversed, but abducting a head of state crosses into territory most countries consider a red line. That's why reactions from Beijing and Moscow have been so sharp. China's anger isn't really about Nicolas Maduro. It is about precedent. China has spent years expanding its economic and diplomatic presence in Latin America, investing, lending, and positioning itself as a stable alternative to US dominance. A US military operation that removes a leader by force threatens the entire strategy. China fears normalization. If Washington can do this in Venezuela today, what stops it elsewhere tomorrow? That's why China is framing this not as a regional issue, but as a threat to international stability. For Russia, this crisis is an opportunity. Moscow has long argued that the US-led rules-based order applies only when it suits Washington. This episode reinforces that narrative. Russia is unlikely to retaliate directly in Venezuela. Instead, it may respond asymmetrically by hardening positions in Ukraine-related talks, expanding military signaling, or deepening coordination with countries that oppose US influence. The message wouldn't be subtle. Escalation has consequences, and they won't be confined to one region. The real danger isn't immediate retaliation, it's convergence. China, Russia, and Iran don't need a formal alliance to apply pressure. Coordinated diplomatic isolation, economic alignment, and narrative warfare may be enough to weaken US credibility, especially across the global south. And once that credibility erodes, America's ability to shape outcomes diminishes. This moment could become a turning point. If Washington doubles down, it risks accelerating the very global realignment it has tried to prevent. If it steps back, it signals restraint, but also vulnerability. Either way, the idea that US can act alone without global pushback is increasingly outdated. This isn't just about Maduro. It's about power, precedent, and who gets to decide the rules. The red lines have been crossed. What happens next will tell us whether the world is headed towards containment or confrontation. If you found this breakdown useful, like, share and subscribe Geopolitical Navigator, because geopolitics isn't slowing down and neither are the consequences. Thank you for watching.